What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners for today's 13-game MLB main slate, courtesy of Awesemo.com. We've got ourselves a lucky 13 games, and this is my last Four Corners video before we take a little break next week for vacation. So let's keep the energy up, let's keep some positivity going, and right now, like the video. If you want to win a free month of Awesemo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. But for now, let's get on to our first corner of the top pitching on the slate, and Jacob deGrom going against Atlanta should be the top-owned option industry-wide. deGrom gets 3.2 implied runs against him, which are slate low, and is expected to be the number one owned pitcher on DraftKings with 36%, on FanDuel with 33%, and on Yahoo with a big 54%. deGrom's 31% K rate, 1.1 whip, and a .099 ISO allowed look good with his price at a reasonable point. So even though Atlanta has a few elite hitters versus right-hand pitching, it does seem like a spot worth targeting today. deGrom looks good here, and he also gets a little bonus with Mike Foltynewicz striking out at a 60% rate. Those are some easy strikeouts to add to his total here, and deGrom has been a safe pitcher for the most part on the year. Jose Barrios versus Detroit will also be popular in some spots with 3.3 implied runs against him. Barrios will be number 2 owned on FanDuel with 17%, and it'll be number 3 owned on Yahoo at 25%. Barrios' strikeout ability has been mediocre with a 22.7% K rate this year, but this matchup with Detroit with their 27% K rate and 73 WRC plus at his FanDuel price especially is really appealing. Barrios is not going to offer you the upside and safety of guys like Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander in the last few days versus Detroit, but it is still a really nice spot from, especially on the sites where his price is really reasonable like FanDuel. And Jack Flaherty versus Colorado should also find some ownership today with 3.3 implied runs against him as well. Flaherty will be number 2 owned on Yahoo with 31%, and it'll be number 3 owned on DraftKings with 19%. Flaherty's been a beast in 2019 with a 1.1 whip and a 28.3% K rate. So even though Colorado's 23% aggregate K rate isn't great, he has some upside on sites where his price is reasonable. Flaherty's price on Yahoo looks pretty good. On DraftKings, it looks okay. I think the spot is a decent one though, because Colorado really hasn't shown much for his right-hand pitching on the year, and Flaherty has been extremely good. Now onto our next corner, the top stacks on the slate, and Milwaukee stack going against Merrill Kelly should be popular today. Milwaukee gets 5.5 implied runs, and Kelly is allowed a 195 ISO overall, and now he's in a hitter's park versus a Milwaukee team who has a 196 ISO of their own. Ownership will be high for the whole stack, but especially Trent Grisham is cheap industry-wide in the leadoff spot, so leaving him out of the stack is one way to pivot from what looks like a very chalky Milwaukee team today. Merrill Kelly is not a great pitcher, and he gets a park downgrade heading into Milwaukee today. I like the spot for Milwaukee, even though the ownership for them seems really high, especially with that ownership going to Trent Grisham. And a Toronto stack versus Justice Sheffield looks like it'll be owned today with 4.7 implied runs for them. Toronto projects for high ownership with Justice having been shelled in a limited MLB sample size with a 2.3 whip and 334 ISO allowed. Toronto has some power hitters in their lineup, but their ownership seems too high, with Sheffield reportedly having made improvements in the minors with 9.8 Ks per 9 over his most recent stretch. Sheffield is a top prospect in the Mariners organization, and I do think he's due for some positive regression. Toronto just seems a bit too overowned to me for the spot, and I think people are targeting the very limited sample size for Sheffield rather than the overall body of work that he can bring. And a Tampa Bay stack versus Ty Blach should be popular again with 6.1 implied runs for them. Tampa Bay projects for top ownership again as Blach showed nothing in a limited 2019 sample with a 2.3 whip, 6.5 xFIP, and 16% K rate. Tampa Bay is in a better spot than versus Woj yesterday, who has actual strikeout ability. The Black has avoided power fairly well with a low 132 ISO allowed and 5.2% barrel ball rate. The high ownership is a bit of concern, as is the lack of power that Black has given up. I think the spot overall looks like a good one for Tampa Bay and Baltimore, and I imagine it'll have a good amount of exposure, even if I do come under the field on that high ownership today. And now into our next corner, the lower owned options on the slate, and a Philly stack going against Hector Noesi is one of those teams. Philly gets 5.1 implied runs, and it's a park downgrade for Philly, but Noesi's allowed a 365 ISO and 11% barrel ball rate, and has actually gotten lucky with a 210 BABIP in a limited 2019 sample size. Noesi has shown little skill this year with a 1.5 whip and a 6.1 xFIP, so Philly seems worth some exposure despite the park and not stellar prices. It's hard to advocate heavily for a stack in Miami, but the spot is a good one against Noesi, a guy who has shown very little so far in his return from the majors. And on the other side, Vince Velasquez versus Miami interests me with the 3.9 implied runs against him. Velasquez gets a park upgrade without a big price jump despite his 25% K rate going against a Miami projected lineup who has a 29.1% aggregate K rate and no hitter over a 160 ISO. Velasquez is stunk versus left-handed batters with a 4.9 xFIP and 238 ISO allowed, but there really aren't worrisome lefties in Miami's lineup who could get to those weaknesses. I like the spot and price for Velasquez, so as long as he doesn't get too chalky, I think it's worth having a good amount of exposure to him today going against a really weak Miami squad. And a Houston stack versus Jose Suarez interests me with the 5.7 implied runs for them. Houston has had some decent plays over the last few days, but they haven't been getting there as a full stack. And a spot versus Suarez with his 2.1 whip and 7.6 xFIP allowed to right-handed batters could be the spot for them to finally go off. The prices remain miserably high for Houston, but Suarez has allowed a 257 ISO on the year without many signs of life, giving up at least 4 earned runs in his last 4 starts. Suarez has shown a real penchant for getting blown up, and Houston actually has a couple decent values in the lineup with Chirinos and Abraham Toro expected in there. So I think it's a decent spot to go to Houston today as a full stack without much ownership expected because those high prices for him industry-wide. And Mitch Keller versus Cincinnati interests me a bit with the 4.4 implied runs against him. Keller has not been great with a 2 whip and 351 batting average allowed, a limited 2019 sample size. He has a 23% K rate going against a Cincinnati line who has a 26% aggregate K rate versus right-hand pitching. On a slate without a chalk cheap pitcher, landing on a guy like Mitch Keller or even Peter Lambert in a park upgrade at St. Louis seem like tournament moves worth some exposure to me today. On a slate of this size with some bats you want to pay up for, I think you have to get some cheap pitching in there, and Keller to me jumps out as one guy who has some potential, who also seems really due for some positive regression. And now into our last corner of the one-offs, and George Springer going against Jose Suarez interests me a lot. Springer is in the leadoff spot with a 200 ISO and 143 WRC plus versus left-hand pitching, while Suarez gives up that big 2.1 whip, 7.6 xFIP, and 278 ISO to right-handed batters. It was tempting to put a cheap guy like Abraham Toro or Robinson Chirinos in here, but I do think the leadoff spot for George Springer and some good power numbers on the year are a really nice spot for him going against a weak pitcher in Suarez. And Rhys Hoskins versus Hector Noesi interests me as a one-off as well. Hoskins remains cheap in the leadoff spot, and even though he's been slumping with power, he has a 261 ISO versus right-hand pitching going back to last year, while Noesi has given up a 411 ISO and 9 xFIP to right-handed batters in 2019. The full Philly stack looks good, but Hoskins in the leadoff spot going against a weak pitcher in Noesi seems like a value that's too hard to pass up today. And David Peralta versus Jordan Lyles interests me a bit as well as a one-off. Lyles gives up a 207 ISO to left-handed batters on a park that's going to help out lefty power, while Peralta has a 234 ISO and 136 WRC plus versus right-hand pitching. Peralta's a quality lefty bat, and Lyles, though he's not bad, does have some struggles with power. I think it's a decent spot for Peralta to find some power production today. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on today's slate. So right now, please like the video. If you want to win that free month of Osmo Plus, like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. Yesterday, Gleyber Torres was the only guy in Major League Baseball to hit a double dong, and nobody guessed him in the comments, so get weird with it. We got 13 games today, a very lucky number, of course. So right now, please like the video and comment your double dong pick down below. But hey, if you want to treat yourself as well and get yourself a membership to Osmo Plus, you can use this promo code Switch and Hedge for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. Get all the ownership projections, the player projections, the deep dive column, the lineup builder, the top stacks tool, a million different things that'll help you make better MLB DFS lineups every single day. So use that promo code Switch and Hedge right now for half off your first month of Osmo Plus. Go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. As I mentioned, I'll be on vacation next week, so where else are you going to get your fix of me if you're not getting the Four Corners video daily? So go check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. I'll be back on Live Before Lock today and tomorrow, so subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when we go live. And I'm not sure what the status is at the Four Corners next week. There's a possibility we'll have a guest host here, but keep your eyes peeled to the channel and you'll see what's coming up. And I'll be back with you guys soon for another Four Corners video. So hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Good luck.